right, welcome back to another episode of Dogfight Podcast. My name is Uriah.
And I'm Pavel. Thanks for having me again over here.
It's been kind of a crazy week. I kind of wanted to record this earlier in the week, but life got in the way and work. So we're recording this a little bit later. I'm going to hopefully get this episode out by tonight if I have the resolve to.
Yeah.
We all.
We actually have this week, since we had an off week, although it wasn't as much of an off week as we thought. We'll go into that in a little bit. I'm bringing a friend of mine onto the podcast, my friend Noble. Say hi, Noble.
Hello.
Who is would you consider yourself an MMA fan? I don't think so, right? You're just kind of, but you've been watching the fights with me, occasionally.
I consider myself a fantasy MMA fan, where I have like when I think of MMA, like I've only seen like highlights really.
Okay.
Like you've shown me through a couple of like longer, more like standard fights, but like I feel like I've gotten pretty lucky, more or less, with what I've seen.
Yeah. Fortunately, I haven't had. There was only like one really bad fight I think I sat you through, which was
the title card.
Which fight was it?
John Whaley versus Rose Namajunas. The second one.
I mean, what was that? Was it a head kick KO?
The head kick KO was the first one. The second one was the 5-round wrestle fuck.
Oh yeah, I remember now.
I know. It's
not the worst fight to watch, but it wasn't.
It was better than Rose's next fight.
Yeah,
we beat that horse to death last week. So
I mean, it was a case of like I don't know if I'm mixing up the fights here, but it was a technical showcase. Like it was impressive in a more objective manner, but the room was not very hype.
Yeah, from a audience point of view, it wasn't like a barn burner. So
because every fight on that card before that, like pretty much every fight on that card was at least pretty good. Like looking through this card, like we had let's see, we had the Chris Barnett spinning head kick that was on that card. Ian Gary had his debut on that card. Bobby Green versus Ali Quinta, he knocked him out pretty quick. Alex Pereira made his debut on that card and knocked out Michailidis. And then, of course, the main card, we had Gaethje Chandler, directly followed by Burgos Quarantillo, directly followed by Edgar Vera.
Did Pereira really make his debut on that card?
Yeah, he did.
That was only like a year ago.
No, it was. Oh, wow, that was a year ago, huh?
And he's already getting a freaking title.
They're fast-tracking him.
They're fast-tracking him way too fast. Too fast.
He does have a win over the champ, though.
I guess that's the only reason why they'll do it. But anyhow.
Yeah. So, I mean, given the last 4 fights before that all being like ridiculous, then I can kind of understand like why the crowd wasn't so hyped for that, since it was just kind of a wrestling match, after all those KOs and slugfests,
absolute wars.
Yeah. Also, looking at this page, apparently Sean Strickland is supposed to fight Luke Rockhold on that card.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Yeah, anyway, that would have been a
topic, but yeah,
disgusting fight.
Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So I know I've been pretty lucky showing you fights. You also watched Ortega versus Volkanovski, which was fantastic.
Yeah. Like that was a lot of fun. I mean, it might be like it might kind of be selective, because usually when I would schedule out time to watch with you, I would trust your judgment on when to pay attention. Like you directly said to me a couple of times, like, "Oh, these guys are up. You can do homework."
Yeah, that's true. I don't I can't remember exactly which events I did that for. I think maybe we caught the end of Shevchenko versus Murphy directly before Ortega Volkanovski, and I basically told you like, yeah, don't bother.
Yeah.
Not that was a bad fight, but I mean, Shevchenko outclasses everyone.
So, yeah.
I have to ask real quick. What got you remotely curious in watching mixed martial arts?
All right. Well, I guess this is the part of the podcast where I reveal that I'm a complete weeb.
I mean,
but
so am I.
So it was actually what got me started into like martial arts in general was reading through a really really long boxing anime called or boxing manga called Hajime no Ippo, which is very fantasized but generally regarded as pretty. The only thing they really exaggerate is how much energy people have. But in
Yeah.
terms of physical boundaries, anatomy, and all that stuff, it's pretty good. And from there, I read I'm blanking on the name, but I read another manga that's about mixed martial arts in general, like very focused on it. And I found that incredibly interesting. I talked to Max about it. Pavel, sorry,
No worries,
sorry.
we're good.
Ah,
And he kind of showed me. He was like, "Oh, you like that? You should come watch this event with me." And it just so happened that event was notably very, very, very good, which definitely helped me like spark the initial interest.
sure, okay.
Um, so I'd say that's probably where it started.
I remember watching my first fight. I had no idea what the hell's going on. Just saw two dudes just slugging it out in an octagon thingy. I was like, this is cool.
Yeah, I mean, it is a lot easier once you get past a couple of blocks to get into MMA for the simple fact of, besides, some basic rules about how not to kill your opponent, it's pretty it's pretty intrinsic. They beat each other up. The guy that falls the guy that falls or gets knocked out loses. There's no, the rules aren't much more advanced than that.
Right.
Well, they are, but nobody seems to know them, even the judges and the refs. It's all a mess. But we'll have an episode about that at some point.
I sometimes I'll hear you while we're watching, like, bring up rules, and I never see them enforced ever.
Yeah,
like,
no,
stop hanging on the wall. Stop hanging on the wall.
Stop striking to the back of the head.
Yeah.
Or to the top of the head too.
All I know is, well, it's even different in one, but generally, no, in UFC, no knee kicks to the head, no I don't know what it's called. I just like calling it like an elbow drop.
Oh yeah, no 12 to 6.
12 to 6.
12 to 6, yeah.
Which is
And obviously, like, there's cheating, like no taking the stuffing out, no. You can't kick somebody in the
Nope.
groin,
No
right?
low blows.
Okay, no low blows.
Not anymore.
You cannot
Long
kick
time
anybody in the
ago.
balls.
Long time ago.
Yeah.
Not anymore.
I remember one of the fights actually there was a penalty because one of the fighters was doing just like leg kicks, like trying to damage it, and accidentally like went a little too high up, and they were like, "You can't do that."
Yeah.
You can't do
Really
that.
bad groin strike to take a point off. Usually, that should happen more often. Let me be clear, but they usually don't.
Yeah.
Or it has to be like super repeated.
Yeah, I think that was the case. Is that he just kept kicking that
Knee.
knee kicking that spot.
Oh, he might have done it a couple times.
Yeah, you couldn't see where he was kicking. But yeah, it definitely was like a. Yeah, you shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah.
Every time there's like a low blow, and especially when we're all watching the fights together, there's a general understanding of how much that hurts, and literally all of us are just sitting there, just oh
Yeah.
There's gotten to points where I stood up from my desk and like shook it off just because like I know how that feels. I'm like, wait a minute, why am I hurting?
I'm just watching.
It's like that phantom limb sort of thing.
Exactly.
You get it, like
we've all like
tough.
inadvertently been hit there, or like had like a basketball throw or something. Like we all know how that feels.
Yeah. Every guy knows that. So yeah, not fun. So yeah, yeah. Okay, so you said there were kind of some barriers to entry. I guess like one thing is that we're trying to do in our podcast is to try and make mixed martial arts more accessible. So what kind of like things do you think that some promotions should do to kind of like lure people, not like lure people in as in like try to capture them, but like to catch people's attention to those who aren't like already in the sport?
I mean, generally speaking, it's one of those weird things where I feel like MMA needs less of a hook than maybe some other sports, because innately there's just a lot of people out there that want to see people fighting each other at a high level.
Hmm.
For me, like the biggest and insurmountable barrier of entry is financially. Like, it's expensive to watch and annoying to watch.
Don't we know it?
And
Yeah.
it's also like, I got lucky in the fact that the first fight that I watched, or first full event that I watched, happened to be like a really, really good one. But if I didn't have, Pavel on my side telling me, hey, this card's going to be stacked, things are going to be good, you should watch this one. If I was just getting into martial arts, I just, oh, this one's coming up, I'll watch this. And it could be, it could be a snooze fest. You just don't know. You might get lucky, you might not. And that lack of information, I think people might be trying it out and just being like, oh, this is what this is. And just kind of just writing it off a little bit. Because it's even worse that if they're watching it legally, they probably had to pay a pretty penny to see that.
Right.
In terms of barrier of entry beyond anything financial, or I guess just knowledge based, I guess it could come down to just who to root for. I think it might have been cool to see like more of the fighters' stories, and because Pavel knew all the lore. I could ask him like, why do they hate each other? What's the why is this a revenge match? What happened last time?
Right, because that's true. Because I did have you watching for Usman versus Covington.
Yeah.
So
the story is important. Like almost every anybody that plays sports at a high level is unintentionally or intentionally going to get wrapped up in some sort of story or drama, and that's really interesting. I would have liked to know a lot more about these fighters. Why they started, what they're doing, before getting to the actual event.
true.
Because ultimately, what it just came down to at the end was, this guy's American, so I'll root for him because I'm American, or this guy's kind of funny, I'll root for him because he's kind of goofy.
I think that's an interesting take compared to like a lot of other sports where like football or whatever, where for one reason or another you would root for a team because you're either from that state or you go to their college or what have you. But like MMA is definitely one of the sports where you don't really have to have a connection to start rooting for somebody. Like I'm not from Australia, but I like Robert Whitaker. It's really fun and really cool that it has that difference between quote unquote mainstream sports and team sports and things like that, where it's an individual base, not a team base.
Yeah, I guess what I might like in a fighter, other people might not like. Like, I like, show respect, show, deference if they deserve it. And if you win, I'm on the opinion, like, go off, go crazy, have fun, do a flip. I love taunting, and like, you didn't actually hurt me. I don't care. That's why I love the Gaethje fight, because I was always like, he would take like 3 punches to the face and be like, come on, hit me harder.
That
You
was
can't get
pretty
me down.
awesome, to be fair.
Handler is
that-
an
yeah, that's-
absolute dog.
Yeah, like that's awesome to me. Like, that's like a real, like, oh my god, this guy's insane. And so that's what I gravitate to, at least from my experience here. But I could definitely, like, I do like that your personal preference might come in more to who you follow than, oh, I live in Ohio, so I have to root for this
Like
team.
territorial allegiance or anything.
Yeah.
Well, if you like taunting, we have a really good fight coming up in 2 weeks, which is going to be Nate Diaz. He's kind of the king of him and his brother, like the king of taunting.
Yeah, they're fucking hilarious. I'll tell you about that fight in a little bit. And if you listen to our podcast next week, we'll cover it. But yes, for perspective, Nate Diaz beat Conor McGregor and talked so much shit about it. It was amazing. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, and we had a little bit of showboating actually in the main event, briefly, which I just rewatched yesterday with Noble. Johnson versus Moraes. But before we get to that, you know how we said it was an off week? Um, I corrected that on our Twitter because I realized that One Championship, who we talked about at the beginning of last episode, we're running an event on Friday night. Actually, they ran 2 events in the span of 24 hours because they're in Singapore. They had one in Singapore prime time, and we had one in American prime time.
That production staff must be so tired.
Oh no, I bet. I mean, yeah, like maybe the UFC production staff is more used to that just because they do it every week, but also they're terrible. So maybe not. Yeah,
Quality over quantity, dude.
that's true. That's true. So yeah, no, I mean, first, before we go into it, anyone that stuck out to you out of the ones that you watched on that?
The one fight.
Yeah, the one fights. Yeah.
I mean, I think going back to what I talked about before, like the story between DJ and Moraes, like was more captivating because there's like a story there. Like, it doesn't even have to be complicated. It's like DJ had never been knocked out, and then this guy knocked him out, and now he's back.
Yeah.
Like that's enough for me to be like, go get him, DJ.
Yeah.
Go get him.
And that's without all the background with Demetrius Johnson being arguably the greatest flyweight to ever fight in the sport.
I think that that fight gave me a much better perspective on certain weight classes. Because the first time early on, like I was like, I like heavyweights because I like big punch, right? It was but watching those, I actually found that the bantamweight, featherweight classes like really like kick some ass in that one.
They're really exciting.
And was it might be something really subtle down to just like being able to hear their kicks more, being able to it really could come down to just feeling it a bit more than you do with the heavyweight stuff. But like, or just maybe it was just a better fight, who knows. But it didn't feel like it was much better. I just felt more connected to it.
That's fair. I mean, I think part of it is that first off, these were like, especially Moraes versus Johnson. That's a really high level fight. That's one of the better fights you can make in the world at 135 pounds right now. Certainly, probably the best fight outside the UFC you can make right now in that division. And also, like, they're both insanely technical and insanely skilled. So that probably helps. With heavyweight, I think there's a different draw to it. A lot of it, like you've told me in the past, is the anticipation, because it can end at any second because these guys have fuck you power.
Yeah, it's just not as interesting, at least to me personally. Like that one fight on one where the guy got grappled twice and then just was stuck in that that crucifix for 7 minutes or something, and he just kept getting elbowed until he slowly just like passed out, basically.
Was that the
that was Amir Al Akbari versus Mauro Cirilli.
Like it was impressive. Like the fact that he managed to get that and maintain it. Like that was the impressive part for me, was watching him try to escape and seeing the anticipation and the like that's a facet I hadn't really seen very well. But it's like I was looking at, it's like every time I thought he was out, he anticipated that, moved in a different way. Because it is kind of similar. It's more similar to striking than I imagined in that way. Like anticipating a punch, anticipating a kick, and reacting accordingly. And that was the interesting part. The not so interesting part was him just getting to there and then just getting pummeled for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's Hardeen's fault. I think he should have stepped in.
You were mentioning that this ref does not call it.
He does not.
There was a point in time where he was like the gold standard of reffing. I don't know what happened, but he used to be good, man. He used to be good. What happened, Herb? Come on, buddy, get together.
Yeah, for real. He's stepping into the shoes of Mario Yamasaki.
Oh no.
Mario Yamasaki, for those who don't know, a very infamous ref who is known for a situation where he let a debuting fighter be a warrior, quote unquote, aka get the shit kicked out of her for way longer than she needed to by
Way
Valentina
too long.
Shevchenko, because Valentina is just so far above everyone else. It was Priscilla Cachoeira.
Yeah, that's really like gross.
It was bad. And he never, to Dana's credit, I don't agree with him on many things. Dana never let him ref in the UFC again after that, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that is another, I guess, another side of it that I guess I could bring up in regards to the first question about like what makes people want to check out MMA. Part of it is that like the reputation of MMA in general isn't amazing, not really because of the fighters, but because of the organization. Like I mean, you've talked a lot about how MMA treats its fighters not super well.
I have gone off about it many times,
Yeah.
including last episode.
And like that's one incident of like, I don't think it's always as direct as this referee let this person get beat up, but it is an example of a greater problem of treating these fighters not super well. And one's problem is that it's run by Amazon.
It's not run by Amazon. They've partnered with Amazon. That was their first event on Amazon, actually.
Oh, I understand.
So yeah.
Which I have to say, like that's a huge moment for one, is them trying to break into the American market through the use of Amazon. That's big.
Yeah, I think this will go better than their last attempt, where they did 4 events on TNT about a year ago, I want to say. And that was all right, but it didn't seem to really stick, Like
And the problem is that because nobody watches cable television anymore.
Right.
So like I think using a streaming service, which I'm willing to wager about at least 80% of Americans have, is pretty big, especially when like it's plastered all over the front of Amazon.
Yeah, exactly. This will help make it so much more accessible, that I think even though they don't run events nearly as often as UFC, they run events about once a month. Even with that, I think that will make a really big difference. I don't know if they'll run every event on there, but they've already announced the next one, which is I think September 30th, and that card looks pretty good. We can talk about that more when that's closer. But I think it was a really promising card. I guess we'll run down and do a quick recap of it. Obviously, we talked about the main event a little bit already. Demetrius Johnson versus Adrian Moraes for the flyweight title. One has a quirk as a promotion. They're so they love to say we don't weight cut in this promotion, so every division is 10 pounds heavier. So that's why I said 135 pounds earlier, but I say flyweight. 135 is usually bantamweight in any other promotion. So that's a little bit weird when I talk about divisions, but this is for the flyweight championship. Really well matched fight. Moraes came out and really had Johnson in trouble for the first round or two. He had him all over. He was all over him on the ground, but then he noticeably started to gas. I think part of the issue is that he failed his weigh-in and his hydration test, which is supposed to prevent weight cutting, implying that yes, he's weight cutting, and yes, they brushed it under the rug because they said the next day he magically passed both.
Somehow.
I know about the weight test, but what is the hydration test?
The way people cut weight oftentimes is that they sweat out all of their water weight. So if you're like below a certain threshold of dehydration, it shows you've been weight cutting, and they're going to fine them for that. So not only did he fail his hydration test, showing that he was, weight cutting probably, he weight cutted and he still missed weight. And so then it doesn't make sense that he would the next day both pass his hydration test, implying that he's rehydrated and gained that water weight, but also gone down the last quarter pound that he needed to go down in order to make weight. Like, what weight is he losing if it's not water weight?
Right. It doesn't line up.
Yeah.
It's the one blemish about one. They're not very transparent about their weight cutting issues. They just say, we don't do it. We're better than the other promotions about it. But also, there's a little bit of fudging behind the scenes. So they're not perfect.
We're better. How are you better? Yes.
Yeah, I mean, better that they They're a little more generous with their bonuses, but they pay the same amount as UFC's bonuses, and they have to milk it on live television to show their live reaction, which I find a little gross personally. I mean, it's cool to see them celebrate, but also like, it feels cheap, you know? Um, but anyways, we'll talk about the overall presentation after the recap. Anyway, we get to the fourth round, and Johnson is really he started to take over in round 3. And he lands this fantastic right straight, which gets Moraes leaning back, and he follows him to the fence and hits a pin perfect jumping knee.
Right on the button.
Yep, knocked him out cold. Unbelievable knockout, and really poetic considering the way that he was knocked out in the first fight was by knee. So it was a great fight. DJ showed he still has it. He's still one of the greatest that the flyweight division's ever seen. And I'm sure they run it back into a trilogy. If not, I don't know if they'll do it immediately, but I think that seems to be the meta, at least in UFC. But I'm excited. It's always a treat to watch DJ fight. So excited to see whatever they put in front of him next. And Moraes too, he'll rebound from this. He's quite good as well. He's one of the better flyweights out of the side of the UFC, even if he's probably a bantamweight outside the UFC, he's still quite good. So that was cool. We had, aside from that, we had a couple Muay Thai fights. I'll cover those later. I'm going to start us with the MMA fights. We had the heavyweight fight we mentioned earlier, Amir Aliakbari versus Mauro Cirilli, where
that was really fun to watch.
Yeah, he really showed his wrestling ability. He just controlled Cirilli the moment he got him to the ground.
Was that
that was the crucifix fight?
Okay, yeah. I know there was 2 big
I'm getting to the second
fight.
one. I'm getting to that the next one. But yeah, I just wanted to spotlight Aliakbari. He really needed that win. He'd been KO'd like twice in a row before that, in pretty spectacular fashion. So he needed that win. So that was pretty good. But I mostly want to focus on the other heavyweight fight that was on the card, which was
real quick. I was looking through Aliakbari's record. Do you know he fought Mirko Cro Cop?
No way, really?
He fought him in Ryzen.
Cro Cop's this old school, he fought in Pride FC, which I told you about, the old Japanese promotion.
Yeah,
and he was one of their legends.
Oh,
his motto, which is one of the most badass mottos in the history of the sport, was right leg hospital, left leg cemetery.
he would just off you with a left head kick.
Dude could
Jesus.
Yeah.
But
he was a special Croatian anti-terrorism cop as well.
Yeah.
That's terrifying.
He was also part of one of the greatest stare downs in MMA history. I'll show you the video later.
With the Silva.
Against Vanderlei Silva.
Such a good stare down.
Yeah. The quote I've seen about it, which I think is very true, is that Vanderlei Silva looked like he was ready to kill someone. Mirko Cro Cop looked like he already had killed someone.
He probably had already.
Exactly.
Multiple people multiple times.
Exactly. So Pride was different, man. Pride was. I mean, I need to go back and watch those fights.
Yes, yes, please watch Pride.
Yeah,
everyone needs to watch Pride fights.
Yeah. I'll show you. I'll try and find some Pride fights for you.
Sure.
You like it. I know you're a weeb, so you like it.
Thank you.
You called yourself a weeb. Okay?
I know.
But yeah, the other heavyweight fight, which was really interesting, was Kirill Grishenko went up against Marcus Buchecha Almeida, who is probably the most successful BJJ guy in the entire sport of mixed martial arts, which is saying a lot. I mean, it's between
him and quite the record.
Yeah. Some of his, the boxcar stats they had on him coming in were absurd. 138 BJJ wins. He's like a 17-time world champion in BJJ. He never failed to get a takedown in MMA when he went for one. That's not 100% takedown defense. That's 100% takedown rate.
Yes, yeah.
Which is bonkers ridiculous. And so he was fighting Kirill Grishenko, who is coming off a fight against one of the prospects one was really trying to build, which was Rug. He was a Senegalese wrestler. So he just a big dude, and he stomped him. So he was one of the more exciting. He was no can. He was an exciting prospect, but Uchecha heel hooked him in the span of like
A
2
minute and a
minutes, 3 minutes,
half.
and it was one of the fastest, smoothest heel hooks I've ever seen.
It looked like Grushenko was tapping on the way down. Like I don't know if it was Grushenko, because the way I saw it is Buchecha hadn't even started to apply pressure yet as he was going down, and Kirill was already tapping as he was like in the 50 as he was getting set up in the 50-50, which is that position before you do a heel hook. So
It's crazy how quick he slapped that on. Like
it
he
was
didn't even hit the
insane.
ground before he tapped out. So like he's a problem. Like he's going to be a menace in one heavyweight. Where I think Brandon Vera was either champion or recently champion. If Brandon Vera, who he's an old time UFC heavyweight, he was okay, I guess. You would know more about him than I would.
He wasn't bad, but I don't think he was like superstar material, in
Yeah,
my opinion. I could be completely wrong, and I'm willing to die on that hill.
Yeah. So like if if that's the caliber of the heavyweight division. Okay, Arjun Buller is champion now, who's okay. I think he beat I think he's the one who beat Brandon Vera for the championship, if I remember right. But yeah, if Arjun Buller, I've seen him fight, he's okay. If he's the top champ in heavyweight, I think Buchecha can get to him. I don't know enough about him to say if he'll win, but that should be a good fight. Like he still has 100% takedown accuracy, which is unheard of in mixed martial arts. You don't see that. So
The problem with setting up your game where you're just a super heavy, either you're super heavy striker, super heavy grappler, is that even though grappling is a little bit different than striking in terms of the amount of ways you can either get in or get out, it makes you a one-dimensional fighter, and it gives people the opportunity to learn your weaknesses. You know, like it's just it makes you just very one-dimensional, very static as a fighter. Not to say that his grappling isn't. I think his grappling can't be beat at this point, but I don't know the landscape of the heavyweight division and one, and like who's just as good as a grappler or a secondary grappler compared to him.
right, yeah.
That's mainly on me because I should probably start researching more about one. Because after this card, I'm very interested in watching these fights. I was having a ball watching them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I actually like particularly really enjoyed the one fight. Like I don't know how to say it in a more proper way, but it honestly did appeal to like the how I started watching MMA through like weebish memes. It kind of felt like that. Like there was a little bit more presentation. Not like
They rely heavily on like their pageantry and their
Yeah,
like theatrics,
with the
which
entrances.
a lot of people don't like, or a lot of people don't like or like it. But
I'm
I,
I'm,
I
I'm a
saw a
sucker
tweet.
for it.
I saw a tweet where it's like it was them bringing out the belt and like the hard case, and someone's like, "This has just become satire of MMA." I'm like, "You're not wrong,"
But
because
it's
it's like,
awesome.
but it's great at the same time. It really harkens back to the old like Pride days where it was very theatrical and a
Yeah,
show.
like
It almost mixes like professional wrestling and MMA in terms of like the atmosphere, which I really like. Which I
yeah,
think in terms could make it a little bit more accessible to people, because if people like professional wrestling and they kind of see that, they're like, "Oh, I could probably get in on this."
I really thought it seemed like almost a perfect fusion where the fights felt like they had like a real importance to them, like a real weight. Like this isn't some dude. This is a dude that walks out to blazing music and rallies the crowd and all this. It seems like a subtle difference, but to a I guess to a casual viewer, it really gave everything a sense of importance.
Right.
Right.
Like these people are fighting and it matters.
Right. It's not. It's the polar opposite of like And look, I defend the Apex cards. I think they're usually very good, and there are things I like more about the Apex cards than regular cards. but it really suffers presentation-wise from having such a small crowd, or even when they didn't have a crowd at all. It really, and you've said this to me before, Yuri. It's like sometimes you're just like, oh, another Apex card. This card must not mean anything.
That's literally me every weekend. There's an Apex card.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a bad presentation issue. Like they just put the fighter names on a dinky little screen and nobody cheers, and like it sucks. I mean, I'm okay with it because that's what I'm used to. I came in to the sport watching exclusively Apex cards because that's all they were running for most of the pandemic. So that was just what I was used to, and I like, being able to hear the corners. I like being able to hear the strikes. But that doesn't really outweigh like when UFC San Diego happened. That was Cruz versus Vera. The crowd made such a difference in that and really elevated some of those fights higher than I think they would have been otherwise. Like I think of Landwehr versus Onama, which
So
absolutely
fun.
swelled with like, the crowd was like, well, no, that wasn't on that card, was it? That was on the next card, wasn't it?
I think it's on the next card, yeah.
Okay. Well, okay, but like the entrances for Cruz and Vera, those were huge. Those got a big reception there, especially because Cruz is the
no, that was the same card. Sorry.
It was? Okay, then
Yeah.
yeah. So I think it did in fact benefit from that a lot. I have to show you that fight. It was fantastic.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is a sport that is meant to be watched. People are meant to be watching this happen. And I think it does. I think it treads the line very well between performance and believability. Like it's not like once the fanfare is done, these are two real people actually fighting each other.
Yeah.
That isn't lost, which I thought was really, really engaging. Pavel knows about this, but my favorite feature of one throughout the whole fight was the keys to success that they would like show on screen, because it made me feel smarter than I was. It was like they would pop up and they'd be like, this fight, if you're going against this fighter, make sure he doesn't get both your legs. Mm-hmm. And so watching the fight, you see those little tidbits of information. You keep them in their head. It lets you be like, this is how this. You get a little more information about how this guy fights. Like it was really satisfying. The fight I'm talking about.
Yeah, this was Grushenko versus Buchecha for the keys to the fight. For Grushenko, it was don't let Buchecha get a double leg takedown.
Would you believe
that? Yeah.
Yeah. Would you believe it? It was a double leg takedown, and he tapped immediately.
Yeah.
And I like as a casual viewer, that really helped bridge the gap to, I guess, someone a lot more knowledgeable. Like it let me focus on a few things. Some of them weren't as interesting. Some of them were like, he has really good footwork. It's like, cool. So most it's a part of this. But
you'd be surprised. Some, especially heavyweights, have awful footwork.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But it would be very just static and foot heavy.
Yeah. but some of them were very, very crucial. Ended up being in the fights. Like, don't let him kick you in the leg in the same spot twice.
Right. And we're going to get to the Muay Thai fights in a little bit, because that's not technically MMA. I cheated a little bit because...
That's true. That's true.
The thing about One Championship I didn't mention last week is that they don't just do mixed martial arts. And in fact, a lot of people argue that their Muay Thai and kickboxing divisions are higher level than their mixed martial arts, which is saying a lot. They have good MMA, but oh boy, they really put on a show with their Muay Thai on this card. We had 3 really, really good Muay Thai matches on this card, which we'll recap in brief. We'll start with the one you just mentioned, where it was Nango Gayong Hadao versus who was the champion of the division, dominant champion, versus Liam Harrison, who is a contender from Britain, who came in with some hype behind him. And Nango is such a ridiculous kicker that
it's insane.
Like, he kicked Liam Harrison in the knee like twice, maybe 3 or 4 times throughout the fight, and eventually his Harrison's knee just gave out. It would no longer
It just
bend.
couldn't work
He got
anymore.
knocked down and he couldn't get up, which is absurd.
That was genuinely, throughout all of the violence I've seen in UFC, that was actually like one of the more like horrifying moments, because I felt very real. Like, oh my god, he got kicked so hard he can't move his leg. That's insane.
Yeah.
That's actually crazy.
Yeah.
Because we saw it. The timeline was like he kept, just getting like he kept getting kicked like is pretty often throughout these. Like you mentioned, that's like kind of a I guess a more meta thing is to like go for the legs.
Yeah.
But in Muay Thai, that was another level. Like those kicks were visibly, to even an uninitiated person, terrifying. And he took like 3 in different places, and then he took one, like you said, like a little bit below the knee, and he like bounced back, noticeably was hurt, and then was kicked in the exact same spot right after, and that was it.
Yeah. His knee locked up, like it straightened up, and he had to like hobble back.
It was
fighting
when he got dropped, like you could see his foot just twitching. Like the muscles just got completely short circuited, and his nerves didn't know what to do at all.
I've never seen something like that. Like usually the leg stuff is a accumulation of a bigger picture. Like you're stopping their footwork, you're making their foundation a lot more shaky. But I've never seen that alone take out a fighter.
Leg kick KOs are nasty.
Really.
Man.
Even leg kick KOs though are usually an accumulation, like you said, of just like they can't take the pain anymore because their calf has been kicked so many times.
Yeah, but this is like 4 or 5 kicks.
You rarely see one where he only gets kicked a few times, but he gets kicked in the knee like that, so it just stops working. It's ridiculous how Nango's a monster.
Is it weird that I could feel that pain a lot more than I feel the pain of like some of the other stuff there? Like I don't know how to describe it, but like I've never, been in a crucifixion hold and somebody punching my face over and over again. But I've like hurt my leg real bad. Like I've experienced that sort of sensation. So I saw that, I was like, it was one of those, oh, I feel that moments. Like
I've been leg kicked 3 times in my life. I never want to have it happen again.
Yeah. Didn't you say you got like 10% as well?
Yeah, so like so we were like kind of dicking around the gym. I like to hang out with some of the strikers because they're just fun dudes, and I like to listen to them, just hang out with them. And one of the guys, he's like, Yuri, I'll give you like $10 if you let me leg kick you. I'm like, $10. That's a fucking like Moe's burrito right there, man. Like, hell yeah, let's do this. I'm like, all right, it's like what percentage we're going? I was like, I'll do like 10. I'm like, 10%. All right, cool. Let's do this. Throws an absolute leg chop, and I'm on the ground just like crying and just screaming and rolling in pain.
Oh god, yeah. Oh, that's very. I don't know why that's so visceral to me. Like I think I feel like there's some sort of untapped memory there.
All you have to do is imagine getting kicked in the calf.
Yeah, I guess it's easier to imagine that. Maybe I'm just weird, but it's easier to imagine getting kicked in the calf for me than it is to imagine getting kicked in the face.
You have a surprisingly large amount of nerves in the leg. Just letting you know. I found out the hard way.
I mean, there's also just something scary about it. Like, just you can't move. Like
here's the thing from like I don't mean casual, but from the uninitiated. And I was like this too when I first started watching. I'm like, why are they kicking the legs? It looks really stupid. Go for the head. Go for the body. People don't realize, and like what Pavel was saying, like it's one of those. While leg kick KOs happen, it's definitely it's like moving a pawn in a chess game, or it can be a long burn and a long con, but it pays off in the end, especially when you realize that your opponent is just on shaky ground and can't move as right. Yeah, or he can't circle out correctly or can't cut correctly. Like that means you all of your leg kicks have like paid off.
Yeah, I had the exact same perspective when I started because my knowledge was like really it was like, why are they kicking the legs? That's like one of the human body's like strongest points. Like, they have to support that weight. They're tough. Why would you do that? Like, go for the chest, go for the head, obviously.
Go
Like,
for the liver or something.
yeah. Like
But
I
then
didn't
you
really get it.
realize it's like,
Yeah.
oh wait a minute, the legs support the body, support all that weight.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
you get rid of that, because like a lot of I've heard a lot of kickboxing coaches say this, and I heard my friend say this. She does Muay Thai. Is you chop the tree trunk, or you chop the trunk, the tree falls.
Yeah,
Yeah, you
and
keep
it's
hacking away
also
at it, it's eventually gonna fall.
not as dangerous. Like, obviously, you can get your foot grabbed, but generally, what I saw is that 90% of the time, if it wasn't like completely obvious and expected, they would just tank. They would just have to tank the hit and couldn't really do much. Like,
There are ways of like blocking it, where she's like
it,
you would raise your leg and check it, which
yeah,
has actually paid off twice, and that I
Checking
can
it is
think
the,
of.
is the checking it's the thing I was telling you about how they
Yeah,
raise
yeah.
their shin to get the shin on the other person's shin to get them to stop
But
kicking because it hurts them more than it hurts you.
at that high level, though, they happen so fast that like you have to.
You have to be
You
reading micro
have to
movements.
be reading it, yeah. Like, I saw it would usually go. They get 2 kicks successfully, and then at that point, the opponent was completely on guard for a leg kick, which is also dangerous in its own right, because then you might not be as on guard for getting punched in the face.
Exactly.
But in that specific circumstance, the opponent did end up going for another leg kick, and I saw that check, and that looked fucking painful.
Yes.
I mean,
It's all a chess game.
I think you were very apt with it. It's like going to like it's like kicking a wall if you like go for that, because the shin is so strong.
Yeah. Especially with these Muay Thai guys, these guys like they'll kick iron poles, they'll kick like small trees down. That's how they train until
They also
like,
start
numb
training
their-
when they're like 6.
Yeah. I remember he's like 20 years old, 160 something.
Yeah.
Then you start
Like,
doing the math, and you're like, oh
oh
god.
god.
Yeah. Yeah. I will show some for all the love on the leg kicks from Nango. We should give credit as well to the regular knockouts from both Pampayak, Jitwongan, and Super Leg Kit Wonga.
How the hell do you pronounce these names,
Oh my!
dude?
I'm sitting here like, am I wrong for not being able to do this?
I'm just a nerd.
I'm
Okay.
just like, all right, Pavel, this is all you. Go ahead and pronounce it for me, because I have no way I'm going to do this.
Completely okay with this.
Yeah. So to recap them briefly, these were the 2 fights that were semifinals in the Grand Prix of Muay Thai in, I think it was flyweight. So the winners will face each other, and oh boy. So we had Superlek versus Gonçalves was his name.
Yeah, Gonçalves.
And he knocked him up with one of the sweetest like elbows I've seen. Just
It
not
was
because it was
beautiful.
not just because it was like perfectly pinpoint. It was a technique you almost never see somebody get knocked out with, which was a lead elbow. Like not just like your regular lead elbow, like a Cater on Stevens kind of thing, you know, like hands straight up in the air, lunging forward with your foot.
He
and
like
hitting with the
punched
elbow.
out with his elbow, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, which is like the stuff that I always hype Munir Lazez for doing, and nobody here knows who Munir Lazez is. I'm sorry, that's just me being a nerd.
It's one of those things where I wouldn't even like think to do that in a fight. Like, I know they're obviously, hyper trained, this is like part of their arsenal, but it seems like doing the motion afterwards, it feels unnatural. It's like, why would you do that when you could just punch the guy and have more range?
It's really
But-
playing strength to Muay Thai high guard, which is you essentially cover up, like you put both your hands out and you just cover up. But like instead of extending out and swinging an elbow, you just punch out, and like it really plays that strength. And I think if I probably studied more Muay Thai or watched it or learned it, it would make more sense in my brain. But even like my rudimentary knowledge, I'm still sitting here like, how the fuck did you pull that
Yeah,
off?
yeah, I'm there with
It's
you.
one of those things where it's like if you like try and do the motion, it's like how do you get any power on it, let alone enough not only to do knockout power, but he knocked him down with the exact same strike just a few seconds earlier. How do you get knockout power on 2 of those things? It's on 2 of those crazy elbows.
Well,
and make
Pavel,
that read.
Let's figure it out.
I need to start learning how to strike. God damn it.
Yeah. And then the second one we had, which was this was Pampayak versus Michael from Cyprus.
This was beautiful.
Before I go into that, I do want to pour one out for Michael because he was gonna fight Rodtang, Pampayak's partner, he fought Demetrius Johnson last time. Demetrius Johnson fought in like a crazy like super fight mixed rules fight, which was wild. But he got sick day of, so poor Sava Michael had to adjust to a completely different style on 24 hours notice. And Pampayak is a monster in his own right. And oh boy, he had one of the nastiest knockouts I've seen in Muay Thai. Not just because
is this the one where he got woken up? Oh my god!
This is the one. He not only did he get knocked out with the lead hook that Pampayak threw, gorgeous lead right hook. He was already folding. He landed a straight head kick, like a straight up roundhouse head kick to him as he was falling, which like woke him up, and he just comes to on the ground. And he's like, "What happened?" He got knocked out twice in 1 fucking second. It's ridiculous.
I'm watching it now. I'm trying to see how he sets everything up, and it's just way too fast for me. Even the slow mo is just a little bit too fast for me to try to like dissect this.
Is I've actually seen that scenario like in like a manga. It didn't turn out the same way, obviously, but it was a scenario where the MC was knocked out by a punch and then woken up by a kick and like used that to continue the fight, like he's back in it. I don't think that's how it works in real life. I'm convinced that if you get knocked out and then kicked in the face, you're probably just knocked out again.
I mean, yeah, you saw poor Sava. You saw poor Sava on the ground after that.
I mean, it's not that I really believe that's how it worked, but watching it actually happen was like, yeah, that's that's right.
Yeah.
You get knocked out and then kicked in the face, they call you. Like, you're done. You're checked out.
Yeah. And Pampayak was running away to celebrate before he hit the ground. Like, he knew he had him. So yeah,
that is like a Chad move, is just celebrating. Like there's always been fighters who have celebrated when like they'll get a really good knockdown, but like the fighter's still up, whatever. This is utmost confidence that he landed that kick and that he ended it.
Yeah.
I think he knew he ended it before he even threw that kick.
I think he knew he ended it with the hook.
I think that kick was just to make sure. But I think the hook probably was like, I already got this. I'm done.
I think he already had the combo in motion, and then like he just was already moving by the time he was already falling. Like that's how quick these Muay Thai guys are. And Muay Thai's so cool. One thing about the running away to celebrate when you know you've won the fight, I want to bring up one of my favorite examples, and I know it's one of your favorite examples too. Speaking of Nate Diaz earlier, he had one of the funniest submissions I've ever seen because he locked up a triangle choke on a guy.
I love this. Yes.
All you have to do is like once you lock your legs in the right position, it's a foregone conclusion the fight's going to end. So he gets it. He starts pumping his arms up, throws double birds at the crowd, and it's just like playing up the crowd, and the guy taps.
I actually have a picture of me doing that to one of my buddies in fursuit.
Man.
I mean, I guess it's more a surefire thing in MMA. Whenever I hear about like knowing you've won and popping off, this is a little unrelated, but it's just kind of funny. I remember this fighting game tournament where a guy, it was the finals, and he had just like won, and he was like he stood up, started going around the stadium with his hands up. But what was weird is that his opponent was still at the table doing things. He had misread the amount of rounds left. He had actually only won round 1, and the opponent didn't. It was so funny. He didn't even he didn't pause. He didn't mention it. He just quietly was just just winning the match. And then the guy came back, fell to the ground in despair, and the other opponent just I think he just patted him on the back and walked off.
No, it's like we had a situation like that. We talked about it last week, where Luis Saldana against Sean Woodson knocked him down twice in a couple seconds, and he showboated, thinking he won, but in fact, the finishing strike was a very, very illegal knee to a grounded opponent, which does not fly in UFC, unlike in one. So it was so bad.
I think my exact words was, "You can't fucking do that shit here."
Yeah. exactly. And
What
so,
the
yeah,
hell,
like, it
man?
happened to me too. And he went on to draw the fight. He got a point deducted, and it ended in a split draw, which is just so wild to me. Those never happen.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think the biggest illegal thing I ever saw was the I think it was an eye poke. Um,
Oh yeah,
like
that happens.
I mean that's a scary prospect. It's like I couldn't even see it when it happened. But once they did the close up, like they had the close up eye cam, it was kind of horrifying.
yeah.
Um,
There are very few, like, eye pokes are always awful to watch. There's only very few, like, in-fight injuries that I remember well enough that they were that bad that I was watching live. And one of them was Leon Edwards' eye poke on Bilal Muhammad. That was tough to watch. It
Man,
was
imagine if you
horrible.
watched the Weidman Silva fight.
I did. Oh, not the Silva. I watched the Weidman Hall fight.
No, if you watched the Weidman Silva fight, you probably wouldn't be watching MMA anymore. That
Hey,
made me
look,
almost stop
try me.
watching.
My first fight was Tony Ferguson getting executed by Justin Gaethje in slow motion. We talked about that last week, but anyways. So yeah, no, I mean, all in all, like, I just want to, like, spotlight once more the production value in one, like, not only to have, great MMA, but also world-class kickboxing and Muay Thai all wrapped up into one, especially Muay Thai with the 4-ounce gloves and kickboxing with the 4-ounce gloves, which
I
are a lot,
love
which carry a
mixing
lot
the
of power.
I love them mixing it up. Like that's really cool, and it draws more people in too.
oh, at
Because it doesn't make
100%.
you a one-trick pony in terms of promotion.
It really, like, genuinely, like, it was way, like, when I saw a Muay Thai fight was coming up, I was like, that's cool. I haven't seen that before, and it really was cool. It was awesome.
Yeah, Muay Thai is
And they're doing like dedicated jiu-jitsu matches, I think too, which I
yeah,
think
they're
is
doing
awesome.
submission grappling now, which is also fantastic.
My man's Mikey Musumeci, that's gonna be a fun fight.
He's going to be
dude.
fighting on Prime Video too.
Darth
So,
Rigatoni.
I
yeah.
think
His nickname's Darth Rigatoni, which is so
that's
good.
the best.
Yeah.
I think I actually am coming around more on grappling because, like, when I first started watching,
Yes.
it really, yeah. I mean, I'm sure this is it feels almost universal. Like, you start watching, it's like they're just hugging on the ground.
Yeah.
And sometimes it really is just that. But, like, this event, I saw the absolute, like, brutality and control of that first. I really wish I was good at remembering names, but
It was Ali Akbari over Cirilli.
yeah, and then I saw the masterful defense, like in the final, I believe is the final. It was
Johnson versus Moraes.
Johnson versus Moraes.
Yeah.
Where he was on the ground the entire first round, second round, but Morales came out way more damaged, which was insane to me. And then he was tired. He was like, he had used up so much strength, just like trying to hold this powerhouse down.
This 5'3",
And I saw that,
guy.
and I was like, that's actually, like, watching him, even in these horrible, like, positions, manage to not only avoid damage but inflict it was really, really impressive. And that definitely, like, started changing my perspective, because when I started watching, it really was like, punch each other.
Yeah.
Do something cool.
Do something cool.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just it's accumulating knowledge that helps make those interactions more interesting.
Right.
Doing jiu-jitsu personally has made me appreciate the ground game while I'm watching fights even more. And you can ask Pavel this. Whenever they go to the ground, a casual person would be like, this is fucking stupid. Meanwhile, I'm like on the edge of my seat, like, how is this gonna play out? How is this gonna work? This is so cool.
I mean, you got to taste. I mean, Noble, you got a taste of, like, some of the highest level grappling you see with the Buchecha submission, which was just incredible.
That was awesome. I saw that. I saw that, and I was like, yeah, I would have tapped.
Yeah.
That's horrible.
I've never seen a heel hook that fast, and I train at a gym where the owner, he is known for leg locks and heel hooks like that. That is like his thing.
Yeah.
And I've never seen one thrown that fast before.
I think there's still blind spots in grappling, like when the moments I'm not as into is when, like, they have one of them against the wall and they're just doing these, like, tiny little kicks.
Clinch wrestling is very often lackluster. That's
It can
not just
go both ways, but more often than not, it becomes very from from a watcher's point of view, it's very lackluster. But then
Yeah.
if you insert yourself in their position, you are fighting a dude who is putting all of his weight on you,
Yeah, yeah,
and
yeah.
then starts like throwing small little like knees to the back of your thigh, like, oh,
Oh
that's
yeah,
tough.
like
Yeah.
it can be I guess what it demonstrates is that it can be more explosive than I initially thought. Like the takedowns are really fun to watch. Like and like it's so much the risk versus reward factor is so interesting because like yeah, you're diving to the ground trying to grab this person's legs, head fully exposed for a punch. But if you
Or
succeed
knee.
or knee, I think I witnessed that once. But if you succeed, you have complete. If you're proficient enough, you have complete control of this person for a while.
Yeah.
Man,
Um,
that reminds me of my open mat I had a couple, I think last week. One of the partners I was paired with, uh, little did I know was that he is I don't know, he's not a D1 wrestler, but he's
Oh
like
no.
he
Oh
was like states champion in my
oh
state,
no. Oh
and I
no.
didn't know this, and he just blasts a double leg on me, and I'm like, "What the fuck, dude?" Like, holy shit. And he's like
Yeah.
my size too. I'm like, I'm not a big dude. I'm a pretty small guy. I'm like, all right, this is easy. He goes for double leg. I am instantly just on my back. I'm like, what the fuck just happened?
yeah, I mean,
Like, what the
it's
hell?
it's explosive energy. Like it's very um entertaining. It can be even more wild to watch people defend against it. Like
Mhm.
sometimes I've seen like just a best defense is the best offense and just punch the guy really hard.
Yeah.
But from what I can tell, like certain wrestlers will just take it and be like, "Oh, you're gonna punch me? That's fine. I'm
Yeah.
going to break your leg if you don't submit."
Yeah.
Um,
And it's like I mean, it was lucky that you watched the fight you did because Johnson is truly one of the better fighters in the world. Certainly in his like, in his area of weight classes, like in the lighter weight classes, I would say, who is active right now, whose defensive grappling is that good. Like not just
Wait, which
takedown
fighter?
defense. Demetrius Johnson.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, he was active off his back, and he did more damage to Moraes than Moraes did to him from top position. And Moraes is no slouch.
yeah,
Oh, not at
Um,
all.
yeah,
and
so it was incredible.
I mean that's just impressive. Like just objectively very impressive if you look at it. Um, the, so I'm not all the way there because I still don't get all the nuances of grappling, but I'm definitely starting to understand it a bit more and be like,
It comes with time, and the more fights you watch, especially if you start watching like grapple heavy fighters, you'll kind of pick up more on things as it goes on. Okay, that's
yeah,
the way I was. Like, I didn't understand what it was. And then I just started kind of watching more about it. I'm like, "Oh, this is kinda cool." Like, "Oh, how's he gonna get out of that?"
yeah. I
And then
mean,
eventually I started, like, training it. I'm like, "Oh, I get it now."
yeah, grappling initially was like, oh, he grappled, the fight's on pause for a little bit.
Yeah, that's
Like it's
yeah,
now I was having fun with them punching each other. And if it's sort of a thought of like if you aren't entertained at all by grappling, maybe just go watch Muay Thai.
yeah.
You know,
Muay Thai or kickboxing, exactly. Which one again they do great with.
mhm.
And like I will say, one thing about wrestling that it's impressive to people who watch more, but for a casual can be a turnoff, is when one wrestler is such a better wrestler than the other that they completely control them for the whole fight. Like the lay and pray fighters,
Yeah.
they're effective and they win fights, but casuals hate them because like they see a dude laying on a guy for a for I mean like lay and pray fighters
Oh,
suck even for like people who do watch a lot, but like even like especially at heavyweight this happens a lot. Anybody with even a remote bit of grappling skill, um if they take one of these guys down, they're not getting up for the rest of the round, and they just get swallowed basically.
that's actually so interesting because there's like a direct parallel to well I'll be real with an esport that I'm interested in, which is like competitive melee.
And we talked about esports in the first episode.
Yeah, like I won't take too long, but I think it's just really interesting how parallels like this form. But in melee, you don't have to know much about it, but like it's known for its fast-paced, very high energy sort of system. And like 4 years ago, a new player started playing called Hungrybox, who's very, very famous. And he played the slowest character in the game. And he is hated. He's hated by everyone. But he's the number one. He is ranked number one worldwide because he found his niche and he found a way to make it work. And people hate him for it. And he's like, and he wants to be loved by the community. It's like a very sad thing. Like he's like, so okay, this is actually really bad, but somebody threw a dead crab at him. What the fuck? On stage. Somebody and yeah, this is a real thing. Somebody threw a dead crab at him because they hated him so much.
Maybe esports aren't so different from regular sports after all.
But the thing people hate more than anything is that he inspired people. He inspired people to pick up this character and to play like him. And now he's created a sect of Melee that people hate, and people were scared he was going to kill the entire sport or esport because people stopped wanting to watch because it was a guy running around not interacting with his opponent for 2 minutes, waiting for his opponent to make one mistake and then killing him in 2 seconds.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, doing the rest?
Yeah, just pressing a button and killing him in 1 second.
That's so obnoxious.
It is obnoxious.
Oh
I would hate it. Like, I have mad respect for the guy sticking it out. This is how I play. This is my style. If you don't like it, beat me. I respect that, but I also don't really watch Melee that much.
There's a parallel to that in one of the most dominant champions of recent times, Habib Nurmagomedov, who retired undefeated.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Yeah,
was an absolutely suffocating wrestler. One of the best. Is it safe to say one of the best grapplers the UFC's ever seen? Or one of the, like, certainly in the conversation. Like, he was dominant. Nobody could solve him. And that persisted. He never once was like challenged in his entire time in the UFC. I think he had one like challenging fight before he got to the UFC. But like he was so dominant that people took credit away from him, especially because he went up against Conor McGregor, wrestled him, and of course the McGregor fanboys did not like that. You know Conor McGregor.
Yeah, and that's one of those names that's bled through.
Yeah. Let me guess: McGregor, Ronda Rousey,
of course,
and anyone else.
Those are honestly the
Chuck
main
Liddell.
ones. I actually know a lot more about boxing history. Like I think I mentioned that was like my my introduction into like contact sports in general.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of MMA, it was definitely like. Yeah, Conor McGregor, Ronda Rousey, because you'd see them on mainstream.
They were everywhere.
I've heard Conor McGregor is not a very good guy.
Nope.
He's
and I've also heard that I don't know if I've heard Ronda Rousey is not so great.
No, you heard right.
Okay.
You heard right.
The only story is it bad? The only story I've heard about Ronda Rousey is that she was very famous, very high level. Left for a while, came back, and it was supposed to be like this massive welcome back. The opponent was like, it was almost like the person that she was going up against was meant to lose, and then she got her ass.
It was more like Ronda Rousey was dominant forever, and then got upset, KO'd by a head kick, left the sport for a while.
Wouldn't talk about the loss. She was wouldn't
talk about the loss. Claimed emotional trauma from a loss. And I get fighters, and I can't imagine that weighs, that's not good on the brain. But I think making a big deal out of it is kind of too much.
Yeah,
in my opinion.
Not to mention the lady she came back against was Amanda Nunes, dominant yes. 2-division champion, and probably the greatest women's MMA fighter of all time.
Okay, so I guess an important note in the story is this wasn't just like some random lady she was going against. This was like a real opponent.
Yeah, no, Nunes was getting like disrespected. Like,
that's how I understood it. Is that it seemed very disrespectful. Like, this is Ronda Rousey's great return. It's like it was.
They did tout it as that. is that this is like her return. Like it's like she's gonna be dominant again, and then gets absolutely destroyed by Nunez.
which
Ref
is
stoppage, by the way.
yeah. I mean, I think I mentioned before, but I'm much more drawn to respectful fighters over, I guess that sort of situation. So I read up on that. I'm like, that's kind of just desserts in a way.
Yeah.
I
can't bring myself to feel bad for Rousey.
Yeah,
No,
I mean, I would without the details of like, if this was her comeback fight and it was like if it was like much more respectful and she lost, I might have felt bad because it's like you take such a long break from what you love and you come back just to like fail again. Like that's rough. I think people like I've experienced that. I'm sure you both have experienced that at some point. But if you left in the first place and were like disrespectful about it or like just kind of a baby about it,
I think that's what it was. That she was, and I'm not professional, and I've never ever been on that. I've never been on a world stage like that, and I get like losing in front of everybody on a championship fight by an upset KO. That's devastating. That's bad. Like that fucking sucks. But I don't think saying that you're gonna commit suicide because of that, I don't think that lines up correctly.
that's actually like that's pretty reprehensible because that's like
It discredits everyone
that's
who actually has like legitimate emotional trauma.
yeah. I mean that's I feel like that really speaks. I feel like that's super disrespectful to whoever her opponent was because it's like, what was her opponent meant to do? Not win? Not
That's
try to win?
expected. It was the biggest upset in MMA history.
You're gonna have to show me this at some point.
I will. I'll show you. Yeah.
It's devastating head kick. It literally shook the world.
Like it almost has this like thought of like I was the champion, I was supposed to win. You weren't. You weren't. You didn't deserve this.
Yeah.
Which is just. Oh, I see the notes coming. I was wondering when the furry thing was gonna come.
No. We're not gonna bring. We're running a little long, so I mean, we're probably just gonna jump straight into Gane vs Tuisvasa, which is the event coming up. But yeah, like I was just checking the time. But yeah, no, like yeah, there's a lot of history. I'll show you some of these highlights. I'll show you the Nate Diaz one as well because he's
Get learned,
he's a gangster.
son.
I love him. But yeah. A couple quick notes before we launch into Gane vs Tuisvasa this weekend. There were a couple of news headlines I want to touch on briefly. First off, Paulo Costa, who we talked to about the last couple weeks, he's apparently out till 2023 because he broke his hand, which is a shame. I'd like to see him back. He's a funny dude, one of the funniest dudes in the sport. God bless our king of bitches.
He is unironically funny.
Yeah, he's so funny. Speaking of funny dudes in the sport, Darren Till, welterweight who talks a lot of shit, who hasn't fought in a while because he keeps getting injured, he's saying he wants to fight twice in the next 4 months to kind of get his career back on track. And look, buddy, I'll believe it when I see it.
Is that
who does he fight though? That's what I want to know.
Yeah, he's been out a while. I don't know. He's been calling out. I think either Holland or Kevin Holland or somebody else called him out.
Well, I know Holland would definitely be game for that.
Holland, yeah, I think Holland called him out. Somebody else called Holland out, and he ignored them. That's the story I saw. And like he responded to Till's call out without responding to this other guy's call out. Or no, he called out Till without responding to the other guy's call out, which is kind of shitty. But that's a very Kevin Holland thing to do. So I love Kevin Holland, but
I don't see
Kevin
how
realistic. In this sport, I love him.
That's fun.
Yep.
I just don't see how realistically Till fights twice in the next 4 months.
Let's see him fight once in the next.
Once, year. Definitely, but twice. Yeah. That's pushing a lot.
He'd have to go in and out with no injuries, basically. Especially because he cuts a lot of weight too. Or no, not anymore. He went up
for him.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of shit talking because I feel like both outcomes are kind of fun. Like it's talk shit and get hit and like fall, and it's like, haha, got what you deserved. Talk shit and win. It's like, well, I guess you were right. Yeah, like it's just funny.
Kevin Holland, he talks like good natured shit. He's just funny.
Yeah.
Like this is a dude who also is moonlights as like a real life superhero. I swear, he keeps ending up in these crazy situations and like, saving people's lives. It's ridiculous.
That's funny.
He's like basically Batman. But then there's shit talkers like Conor McGregor who says your wife is in my DMs, I'll fucking kill you. And it's just way over.
The wife in the DMs, that was kind of funny.
I mean, yeah, but like
that was kind of funny.
Yeah. But it was a little weakened by the fact that he was sitting up against the cage with a broken.
Yeah, that was just like, man.
Oh my god, I saw the memes when Conor McGregor's. That was another thing that bled through really, really heavily was Conor McGregor's leg getting fucked up.
Yeah.
I didn't want to. That was gross. I didn't really want to see it, but I did a lot.
Yeah. When McGregor fights a lot, people spread that shit. Yeah. So then, one more thing to cover real quick. A fight that I'm excited about. I want to spotlight. It's further down the line. Amir Almazi, who we talked about last week, he got his step up. He's fighting Alex Perez. I think he's ranked number 4 or 5 or something in flyweight. I think that's a very winnable fight for Albazi. Perez has been choked out twice, and Albazi's been bragging about how he chokes out black belts and to keep sending him black belts to choke out. I think he's going to choke out Perez too. That's my thought, but I think that'll be a good fight. I love flyweight. I think it's super exciting how fast everything moves. So that I wanted to spotlight before we get to Gane vs. Tuisvasa. So on that note, for the early card, this is the first UFC card ever in France. Headlined by a Frenchman, Cyril Gane, who's coming off of his unsuccessful title challenge against Francis Ngannou. And he's fighting another one of the funniest guys in the sport, and really a pretty fearsome knockout artist in his own right, not to take away from it, Tai Tuivasa. This is a guy who's very, very aggressively from Western Sydney, Australia. Every time he fights, he'll walk out to some silly song, like he'll walk out to like "Girls Just Want to Have Fun" or "Barbie Girl" or something. He picks his knockout song based on how funny would it be if this guy got knocked out by a guy who walked out to this song.
I respect that.
And when he wins, he gets up on the fence, calls for a shoe, pours a beer in the shoe, and then drinks the beer out of the shoe. He's
Sydney,
he's a riot. He's so funny. And so that's our headliner on this card. I think it'll be a really interesting fight, but
I don't see how Tai walks away from this.
Yeah, I don't see him walking away victorious. I think Gane is probably the most technical heavyweight in the entire division, except for maybe Tom Aspinall. We don't know that yet. He hasn't gotten far enough up the ladder.
I think as of now, he's probably the most technical heavyweight.
Yeah.
And this is a bold claim, but I'm going to say it.
This is a heavyweight who's like Buchecha. He throws heel hooks. That's so rare. Just because you saw Buchecha does it, doesn't mean that happens. In fact, that doesn't happen in heavyweight. Heavyweights tend to strike. They don't grapple much, oftentimes. So I think Gane wins by decision. Probably a little boring. Dana will probably be mad about it. And, he wants to build Tai as a star. He wants him as champ. But yeah, I think it's going to be a really rough night at the office for Tai. It's one thing when you put him up against Derek Lewis. That's striker on striker. That's something Tai could have.
But you have this going to decision?
Yeah, I think Gane takes him to decision. What, do you think Gane's going to knock him out? Oh, you think he's going to submit him?
No, I think Tai's just going to gas.
Oh, okay.
No one has ever seen Tai go into a 5-round match.
That's true.
I don't think he has. I'm not trying to discredit him again. He is an athlete. He's professional. I am not. But the way I see it is that I don't think he has the gas tank or the stamina. Have you ever the Derek Lewis fight? That was what, second round?
I think so.
Even
that
second round, and granted, he was getting like bombed on by Derek, which that's a horrible place to be in.
He took straight full power shots from Derek Lewis, the hardest puncher in the entire sport, except for Francis Ngannou.
But that was like in the second or third round. I just don't see how he gets to a 5th round decision. I think he's going to slow down in either the second, towards the end of the second, And then the fatigue is really going to kick in the third round, and I think Cyril's going to jump on that opportunity. So I have Cyril by at least TKO in the third round.
Okay. Yeah, I can see that. We'll see how his cardio holds up. I know he's been working on that, but we'll see. And then, of course, the other high-level fight on this card, Robert Whittaker is going to fight Marvin Vettori. Once again, Bobby
I'm
Knuckles
excited.
comes in to gatekeep the title shot from all the young, hungry prospects.
Oh, I'm excited about this fight, even though I know exactly how it's going to end.
Do you? You want to share?
I think it's going to be. It can go in my brain. It can go two ways. It can go TKO fourth round Vettori. Vettori is a victor.
You think he's going to TKO Whittaker?
Dude,
That late in the fight.
Whittaker hasn't looked good, in my opinion, in the last several years.
Former champion, though, you know.
Former champion, but he's getting old. I don't think this division is good for him. Not to say that him going up is a good idea, but he cuts too much weight, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I mean, he did fight at welterweight a long time ago.
So there's that, or there's a decision. It goes to decision. Vettori. Vettori is a monster of a dude.
Dude is like a real life orc. Let me show you a picture of him, Noble.
He is scary. He has power. I think his only no, but I mean he's got losses to fucking Adesanya twice, and then he ran through Costa. Well, not ran through, his decision.
Yeah, dude is he cuts an imposing figure. He looks like an orc.
Apparently, he's like a really nice guy though, which is weird.
Yeah, well, except when he's shit talking people, which he does a lot.
Yeah, well, that's the game, unfortunately.
Yeah, and he's also delusional. He thinks he beat Israel Adesanya in both their fights. Which, all due respect, Marvin, no, you did not. I think you're being too harsh on Bobby Knuckles. I think there is a chance Marvin wrestles him, and Marvin wrestles him, and maybe wins by decision. But I think it's going to be really close, and I do think that Whittaker could win by decision here. I think immediately of Whittaker versus Till, and Whittaker was able to stave off Till, and I think there is the wrestling threat from Marvin, which makes this interesting. But I do think Whittaker is still good enough to be, to make any fight competitive. It's just that he's in the clear Max Holloway spot of Max Holloway being former featherweight champion, who did a trilogy against the current champion Volkanovski and lost all three times. All three times.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's nothing. That's not to say that Holloway's a slouch. That's just Volkanovski. Volkanovski's just that good. And I think Whittaker is still a step above everybody below him. I think this will be very close. I lean Whittaker by decision, but that's just me.
I just want to go on record to say that I want Whittaker to win so badly. He is probably one, if not my favorite fighter that that ever really. But I just Vettori is just. Granted, I'm probably being too harsh on Robert. I mean, he did beat Yoel Romero twice, which is no easy feat.
Yoel Romero is the most terrifying dudes to ever be in the sport. He's like this 46-year-old Cuban rock golem of a man
who's somewhat natty. We don't know yet.
It's just sugar water. He's totally natty. No steroids. Always. But yeah, like I think it'll be competitive. We'll see. I mean, and looking at the rest of the main card, it's like, meh. Except for one fight.
Your boy Jordan's on that card, right?
I was about to say that's the one other fight. Actually, there's two other fights on this whole card that I want to spotlight, which is Charles Jourdain, who is always in a fun scrap and has maybe the best like third round surges I've seen from like any fighter recently. Certainly, like as the fight's ending, he turns it on, and he's always in a fun fight. Like my like the Jourdain versus Andre Ewell fight is my favorite ending to a fight that went to decision.
That where Sparta kicked the dude out of the UFC?
Yeah, he Sparta kicked the dude out of the UFC straight up. I'll have to show you the video. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And Nathaniel Wood's also quite good. I think this will be a really even fight. I think this will be a very exciting fight because Jordan is allergic to bad fights.
Real quick, is this a somewhat short notice fight? Because Jordan just fought like last month, didn't he?
I seem to recall it's on somewhat short notice.
Okay.
Yeah. I don't remember who was originally in this fight, but yeah. It's a little bit short notice. Not like super short notice though. Not like Pampayak on or not like
Yeah,
South
not
Africa
24
or
hours for
Pampayak,
short notice.
yeah, which is just ridiculous. Poor guy.
Fighting twice in like a span of 2 months or whatever is kind of insane.
Yeah. And the last fight I want to spotlight, which I can't believe is not on the main card, considering it has a Frenchman in it, and who is one of the best French prospects in the UFC, and has the guy with the nicest knockout in the entirety of UFC history, probably, I would say, in Joaquin Buckley. So Nasruddin Imavov versus Joaquin Buckley is just on the prelims for some reason.
How's Joaquin Buckley on the prelims?
Yeah, I think they're trying to. I have a theory that I think he's on his last fight on his contract. Don't quote me on that. That's my guess. And they're trying to bury him so he doesn't, demand more money because he is demanding money fights basically. And so they're trying to feed him to this unknown killer to get the hype off of him onto Imavov, who's quite good. I definitely rate him pretty highly. So I think Imavov will beat him because he's a better wrestler. But with Buckley, you never know. He could pull some crazy, ridiculous head kick out of nowhere and then thank his Detroit urban survival training coach.
I forgot about that.
Yep.
Oh, I forgot about
he hired
that.
this total hack for publicity to be his coach in his corner, and he won the fight.
Oh.
Which makes me angry because that means that dude has 100% coaching win.
Yeah. So yeah, no, he's.
So
I think that would be a good fight. I've also heard Benoit Saint-Denis is a good prospect, but I know he lost his debut, so I'll believe when I see it. That's the gist of it. That's everything on the card. It should be an okay fight night. I am looking towards 279. I'm not saying looking forward to 279 because it is a very weak card for a pay-per-view. This isn't one I'm going to drag you to watch, probably, Noble, except for maybe the main couple fights because
at least watch the co-main and the main.
All right.
Yeah, the co-main and the main are probably going to be good, but then after that, it gets very weak very quickly.
Wait, Daniel Rodriguez and Kevin Holland. That's actually going to be a fun fight.
Oh, yeah, they added that on short notice, didn't they?
Yeah, it's like super short notice.
Oh, yeah, speaking of Kevin, okay, we'll watch the last 3 fights. Because Kevin Holland, who we were just talking about, versus Daniel Rodriguez, who is just a gangster, will be a fun fight.
Yeah. Not going to lie.
Going back to the card. Okay, wait. Maybe I am looking forward to this card.
Maybe I'm gonna get dragged.
May this on this card. This is a week from Saturday.
Okay.
It is September 10th.
I mean, I don't know.
Well, yeah,
I probably can do it.
Yeah, I'll let you know. Yeah. But yeah, so that's our preview for Gane vs. Tuisvasa.
My main gripe, real quick, about the Paris card is that it starts so early in the day. I'll be at work most of it.
Yep, it's okay. I'll hold down the fort on the prelims like I always do. Like
I think I'll just be rolling home.
Who knows all of the random prelim fighters no one's ever heard of? So
if I'm lucky and I don't get sidetracked on the way home,
almost all their names properly. I struggle sometimes too. Yasmin Hadagi looking at you. Lukasz Pszczewski looking at you. I got them right, I think, but there's some toughies. Michal Oleksiejczuk, I'm pretty sure I got that wrong. Polish names, man. They're hard. Yeah. But yeah, so I think that brings us to the end of our episode. We've covered pretty much everything. We've got a couple other things to talk about. We'll probably bump them to next week. But yeah, Noble, thank you so much for coming on the show and giving your perspective.
For sure.
And yeah, we might do some more guest episodes in the future. We have a couple friends of.
I have a friend who's locked in. He's getting settled at his new house. He's definitely game though, so I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, and we've got a few people we might have lined up for some time in the future. So
I just like hearing other people's takes who don't watch MMA.
Exactly. It's in the end, as you say, we're just two dogs on the internet. So we just sometimes we need another perspective. So,
fair enough.
Yeah.
I mean,
and even a non-furry perspective. Thank you for coming on this furry podcast.
I don't even know if that was ever mentioned that I'm not a furry.
Yeah. Noble isn't a furry, by the way.
But I'm a gamer and a weeb, so that's honestly worse.
Close enough.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a comp sci furry. I almost just said I'm a comp sci. Don't you
That's
give me
to
that?
say.
You're a comp sci furry.
I misspoke.
Okay, all right. Okay, we'll let that Freudian slip go.
I'm a comp sci gamer weeb, so it's like
You're pretty much already there.
I'm pretty much there. I just like,
you pick a different poison.
I picked my poison differently.
Yeah.
I mean, it was interesting. It was definitely really good to get to know you. I'm looking at the note. Urijah. Sorry.
Scribbled Sharpie on the hand. Urijah?
Urijah. I was honestly, the way it's like written, because I remember I was gonna say Uri. I was like, that's not right. That's not how that is.
Urijah? Named
There
after Uriah Faber.
You abbreviated it?
I did abbreviate.
Oh my god, I hate you.
Okay, to be fair, Yuri wrote that originally, and I never edited it.
Okay,
I'm talking about the host's header on our production notes.
Okay.
We keep things professional here, somewhat.
Yeah. I mean, we went right into it. And I was like, I guess we're just going. We're not even mentioning this.
Yeah, the furry stuff. We'll bring back the furry topics at some point, but we've had a lot of introduction stuff to cover over the last couple of episodes. Like the whole last episode was about accessibility, trying to explain things to listeners, who may not get it. So the furry stuff. We'll get back to it for any.
We're
furries
definitely getting there. Just give us some time, please.
We just got to come up with topics. So if you guys have any topics you guys want us to link into, comment under this video or comment under on our Twitter thread or whatever.
Oh, but please, for the love of God, follow us on Twitter.
Yes, we are at Dogfight Pod on Twitter, and we have our personal Twitters as well. We have it's at Uriah Stone for you, Yuri, and then for me it is at SethNY on Twitter and ENWAI, not NY the letters. I'm really bad with names. I might have just spelled out NY in syllables when I picked a name. Don't judge me. And yeah, so if you want to follow any of us, that's it. And Noble does not have Twitter, and he's probably better off for it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I run a YouTube channel. I haven't posted there in like a year, but like, there's that if you want.
Do you really want to link your YouTube channel to a furry MMA podcast?
I mean, you're weird about this sometimes, because sometimes it's like furries are completely normal people like me, and then I'm like, okay, I don't mind hanging around with them, and they're like, are you sure you want to let this skirt?
No, it's because you shit talk furries,
of course, and you shit talk gamers.
It doesn't though.
I do.
It's just honest here.
But if you want to plug your YouTube, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I plan on getting back to it, but I do stuff there. I do not have a Twitter, so.
Yeah. You want to plug your YouTube channel?
It's Nobleman Dyer. So it's
Nobleman Dyer.
That's right.
YouTube.
I was just going by Noble. Yeah. Nobleman Dyer on YouTube.
Yeah. Well, I'll spell that out. We can put it in the description as well. Thank you for coming on the show again.
Thank you for having me.
Great show, guys.